All right,
Where is everybody?
we're all here. I'm going to open the meeting. It is around 8 o'clock, and this is the select board meeting to set the tax rate. I think a couple points, and I may say the same things that you wanted to say, Frank, but number one, our revals came in, and they're extremely high compared to what previous ones were for the most part. So what our hope is today is to be able to use some of the fund balance possibly to offset the tax increase that we would see. And when I say tax increase, I mean the total amount of taxes that would be due by taxpayer, not necessarily the tax rate, if that makes sense. So we're very fortunate because our town has a great fiscal responsibility. We also have a great comfort in our balances. We have great employees. We have people that pay their taxes on time. So this allows us a lot of leverage to work with the tax rate. So anything else you want to add before we get to the numbers?
Well, I just think you said it all. As I said, we are in an incredible fiscal situation here. I mean, we're really in good shape with 1.4 million in surplus, or fund balance, however you want to call it, okay? And we can cover, that was my wish, is to cover those two singular expenses that we had this year at town meeting, which was the $290 for the shed. By the way, Bob, I'd like you to see the shed in its entirety. And,
excellent.
And also the $250,000 for the fire study, fire department study. So, I mean, by using that amount, is what I'm advocating, at least that amount, we just sort of started a stable, even basis. Those were the two extraordinary expenses, and so really it just keeps us in a stable, moving along, no big hits to our tax rate, and so that's why I'm advocating at least for that amount, but near it. And everything you said I agree with totally.
Bob, any comments before we get nitty-gritty?
Yeah, no, I think we're ready. I'm ready to get into the numbers and take a look at percentages and things like that. I think that you're right, that it's great to be able to give back to the town those two big warrant articles as a starting point. Right. I think every time I've been involved in setting the tax rate, I've wanted to be cognizant of what that minimum amount is in that fund balance that will not have us go below, what is it, Julie, 17%?
17% is the recommended amount from the DRA.
Minimum, what you would want to have on hand as a best practice, as a best accounting practice. And what is that amount, 17%, do you know?
I was just doing that on my phone.
Great, I'll give you some time.
It would be at 20% with no fund balance usage, so
what would be at 20%?
the fund balance after, if you look on the column with the no overlay, it would be at 20, the fund balance after the tax rate, tax dollars and then percentage. So without using any of the fund balance, we would be at 20%, 20.48%.
Right, no, I'm talking about the fund balance. What would the fund, what's the amount of the fund balance?
$1.7 million.
No. What would be the amount of the fund balance at 17% left in? That's what Julie's doing her calculations on. So that helps me understand where there's a line that really would require something above and beyond normal for me to want to support going under. I want to keep that best practice amount unless there's some pressing need that we feel justifies going below that best accounting practice.
I thought there was a range somewhere between like 11 and 17%.
I know at one point we were talking about 11, but
I don't think we've ever used 17%.
Yeah.
I don't know though. I have to go back and look at that.
Because I thought we were pretty far above the recommended amount, and I thought they gave a range of like 11 to 17%. That was what I had in my head. But
well, we started this year with $1 million. We brought it up to 1.4 million. And if you look over the years, we've always had a pretty healthy fund balance, whether we paid attention to 17% or whatever percentage. We always made sure we had enough. And Karen has always assured us the taxes always come in. We're not going to find ourselves in a bind
Yeah,
anywhere, you
yeah.
know. So,
And that's
yeah.
the important thing, is staying
Yeah.
within that reasonable balance left,
Yeah.
because we don't
Right.
want to find ourselves a year from now not in this position.
Right.
It looks like.
And while you're working on that too, Julie, I
Like
just,
250,000, that just seems too low to me.
It is, I think it's true.
Yeah.
a million 250?
No, 200.
17%.
Yeah, I'm just going by our track record.
We normally use 250,000
Right.
of the fund balance.
Is that what we used
But
last
I-
year?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Around
275,
250,
something like
that.
yeah, the conversation was right around there. I mean, having that fund balance to A, cover the warrants, and B, make sure that we do our due diligence as a board to keep the tax rate increase for the town portion as reasonable as possible.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, has me wanting to look, you know, right around that $800,000 mark, based on, you know, the attachments I just got in the email that
Right.
only had an opportunity to digest on my own. I'm
Yeah.
certainly, you know, interested to hear your thoughts on it,
Yeah.
Frank and Barb.
So normally we start with like a range of numbers. We start at zero, of course, of not using any of the fund balance. And then we head up to like max, usually 500,000. This year, because of the reevaluation, you know, you think about this, just because our property values increased. So if you collected the same amount of tax at the current tax rate, you're going to be really boosting up the amount that we collect for the town. So if we left everything the same, we're going to increase the fund balance by an exorbitant amount. Think about that, right? If you have a house that was worth 500,000 and now it's worth $800,000, you're really increasing the amount we're going to be collecting at the current tax rate. The other thing I just want to mention, even though this pertains to the town rate, the other rates went down as well for the county and the school and the state. So that's going to help us ease the burden. So that being said, this year we went ahead and increased the presentation of possible amounts that we used from the fund balance. And we started with over 540,000, which was the amount of the 2 warrant articles from last year. So if we were to use that 540,000, give that back, we would still maintain our fund balance at just under $1 million, and our tax rate would be at $7.12 in total for all 4 components.
Mm-hmm.
And this is always stated without the water district. So if you're in the water district, that's on top of this.
And they did go down. Water
And they
was-
went
did?
down from last year, okay.
Considerably, yeah.
Because they had a huge increase last year. So starting at that jumping off point, and again, feeling very fortunate about it, you know, we can look up, and Frank, Bob, you had just mentioned 800,000. So we went up 600, 800, 850, and 900 just to take it way out. I feel like at the $800,000 level that you mentioned, we would still be almost at 10% of our fund balance. And something that's always been brought to our attention by one of the citizens that's at most of our meetings is that is taxpayer money.
It's already
It's sitting
paid
in
to
the
us.
fund balance, and it's taxpayer money. So to be able to give that back and to keep the tax rates at a more manageable amount, I think is a logical choice at this point. So, you know, I had Julie take the numbers all the way out to 900,000 just to give us a really generous calculation. I think that's a little bit pushing it.
I do too, yeah. I agree with
So
that.
I like to go, you know, we're not going to go crazy here. And I think what we've also talked about is we don't know what our budget is like next year. So we have to anticipate things going up because all things have increased. So we don't want to get into a situation a year from now where we set our tax rate so low that all of a sudden we're going to have to bump it back up a year from now. So I'm preaching to the choir here, I guess, but I'm
Yeah,
just
that's good
sort
to let the
of
people
taking
know.
things off
Yeah.
my mind. What do you think, Frank?
Well, again, I think that the starting point for me, I was hoping would be 540 to cover those two expenses so that we do maintain that stable budget, because those were the two extraordinary one-time expenses that we had. We can cover those easily. Now, if we want to go any further than 540, I have no objection to that either. Okay, but I think that's a good starting point, and as again, it's not it's not like this sugar high, you know, we're just staying in a place that we strive for all the time. Stable rate, moving along and keeping a good, healthy fund balance. 540 certainly does that, and any one of these other two numbers, if Bob is suggesting using 800,000, we'd still have, what, 600,000?
Yeah.
So I mean,
Almost 7, yeah.
that's a pretty good fund balance, and I think we can almost anticipate that next year there'll be more money going into that, and it may reach that million.
Right.
So I have no objection. My only feeling is I'd like the starting point to be at 540, but if this, we want to go up a little bit higher, I'm all for it. What covers that and more.
I'm kind of going back and forth between 8 and 850 just because, put some money in there to help like we always do, 250 last year. Add that to the warrant articles. Be mindful of the fact that there's a lot of angst out there about the revaluation and about what they're going to be looking at. And I feel like, that kind of pushes me more towards 850 than 8 to do what we can to alleviate any concerns at the end of the day. I can remember always wanting to be intentional about a tax rate increase of something like 2.5% to 3%, and we were told by the consultants we use that anything less than that is just going to end up having you have to deal with a spike sooner or later down the road, the cost of living adjustments and everything else. You want it to go up 3% minimum, but I think to manage it in that 850 range is responsible. Because we have the money. We're still, by Julie's calculations, going to be way beyond a best practice amount that we want to start the new year with in that account. When last year we had 1.1.
It was 1 million, just around $1 million at the beginning of the year.
So number one, to have 1.4 tells the story that we managed our operations responsibly. Right. And that's good.
And we could have gone a lot higher last year too.
Right.
Yeah.
We always could.
Yeah. And you would have people in this town saying, well, that's 400,000 minimum you should put in. And so if you're thinking about covering the warrant articles and putting that back in, you should be more like 950.
And I took it up to 900.
I think 850 is a reasonable amount for us to move over and alleviate some of those concerns. It always comes with a revaluation.
Yes. I think that's exactly right. And, I keep going, like I took this up to 900, just wondering how far we wanted to go on it.
Right.
I don't want to push the envelope too much, but at the end of the day, I look at that and I'm like, that would still leave us close to $600,000 in the fund balance before end of year. So, it's like I hear 800, now I hear 850. Do I hear 900?
I wouldn't vote against 9 because that still leaves us with a responsible amount, and it allows me to feel confident that we would be able to continue to manage that rate increase in a responsible way. So.
Right. And I didn't take it up over that because I feel like getting that fund balance below 500,000 would be really too much for my blood pressure. I just, you have to be cognizant of this is why we're in this situation, because we're so caring and conscious about the numbers. So I didn't take it above 900, and I don't know if you want to even explore that, but
I can't give the mind that I wanted to cover that 540.
Yeah.
All of this is music to my ears, I'll tell you right now. And we can do it responsibly. I think Bob made that point. If we wanted to use more, we could. All right. Could I just ask, if you mind? I'd like to talk to administrators for a minute. What's your sense of this? Because you've been doing this 8-9 years. You've been seeing what we've been doing.
Yeah, I would say 800 or 850.
makes you feel more comfortable
Yeah.
with the, just knowing that blips can come up and
Yes,
things.
Yes, because you take that 540 and you add 2, because we typically do 250,000.
Mhm.
Right.
You're almost at 800,000.
Okay,
I do, I mean, we've always had a high fund balance. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Much higher than surrounding towns.
Yes,
And
much
Absolutely.
higher.
and they look at us going,
And
what?
I think we
But-
manage
Yeah.
everything very well.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
That's what it's
I think
exactly
it
what
would
it's
help.
for.
It would help with its rebalance.
Well, I think 900, like I said, would be extremely generous. I'm really comfortable with 850, and I think that's sort of where we can leave today, saying we've done a really excellent job. Our whole town has of managing, paying their bills, paying their taxes, and I would think 850 would leave us a really good position today. Let us feel comfortable about setting that tax rate and keeping our fund balance at a comfortable rate.
Well, that seems to be where everybody's at, and
Yeah.
it's 1.486 million, so I'll
Yeah.
go ahead and make a motion that we use $850 in our unassigned
$850?
$850,000
I wanted
in
to-
unassigned fund balance to offset the tax rate increase this year.
I'll second that.
All in
Absolutely.
favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Could I give 2 ayes?
absolutely.
Aye, aye.
Aye,
This
yeah.
is thrilling. I am so happy.
proud of our town,
Ah.
really, and, it's still going to be a bit of a sting to some people, I'm sure, because the revals really are coming in high. So please, I'm gonna say this, for the
Yeah.
record, on the recording, please, if you have any concerns, when you get your tax bills, contact the town office, because our assessor, Jason Call, will be in the office for 2 days coming up. And then please remember that to watch for the dates of the budget hearings that are going to be coming up in January, so you can come and see how the town is frugally spending our money, your money.
And if someone has questions about the evaluation, like you say, go to
Yeah.
Jason, and if they don't like what they're hearing there, they can go to Superior Court
Yeah, they can do an appeal,
There's-
there
there
are
is an
many
option.
things to do, yeah,
to change that.
yeah. But
That's a long one.
just making those
Yep.
issues clear. So, any other issues or questions, comments?
I have none.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Yes, I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Perfect, thanks, guys.
Yes, yes, yes.